Welcome everyone, especially those of you studying Indian folklore and cultural history, to this explainer of the Fields of Truth sequence. Today we're diving into a real masterclass on how cultural values, like the concept of dharma, are visually encoded into traditional Indian morality tales. We're looking at a fascinating source document today. It's basically a detailed, scene-by-scene structural outline designed to bring an ancient oral tradition to life through a highly cinematic lens. If you want to understand how these stories are constructed, looking at the visual blueprints is absolutely crucial. So let's unpack how age-old lessons of righteousness and deceit get translated into a modern visual format.
So here is our agenda for today. We'll start with 1, the golden folklore setup. Then move to 2, archetypes, farmer versus landlord. 3, conspiracy, shadows and deceit. 4, royal justice, the clay pots. And finally wrap up with 5, truth prevails, dharma restored.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, the golden folklore setup.
Now listen to these specific cinematic modifiers from the very first scene of our source material. The text explicitly calls for a drone shot over lush green farmland at sunrise, golden sunlight, morning mist, bird flying, peaceful mood. These instructions map perfectly to ancient storytelling needs by creating a warm, deeply peaceful foundation. The camera is directed to fly forward and slowly descend toward our hardworking farmer Vikram, who's wearing a traditional dhoti and working his beautiful little farm. You know, in folklore, the establishing setting isn't just about showing a location, it's about spiritual and moral alignment. This lush, sunlit environment immediately signals to us that Vikram lives in complete harmony with his world. He works honestly. He is literally manifesting the essence of dharma in his daily life.
That brings us to section 2, archetypes, farmer versus landlord.
Now we have to examine the classic duality of folklore by looking at our 2 central characters. This setup brilliantly illustrates how visual vocabulary translates moral character. On the one hand, we have daytime sunlight representing goodness with Vikram in his simple dhoti. On the other hand, we have the evil landlord, Pratap. Notice the stark shift in the source's visual instructions here. Pratap is dressed in royal clothes, sure, but he is completely enveloped in intense night shadows. The lighting abruptly shifts to burning torches and fire flickering on faces. This isn't just a random aesthetic choice, it's a structural storytelling device. The environment itself is revealing the character's soul.
Which leads us right into section 3, conspiracy, shadows, and deceit.
Okay, let's explore how that initial piece gets shattered. Notice the specific atmospheric immersion used here to build tension. The source document breaks down this conspiracy into very deliberate, shadowy actions. First, Pratap plans his conspiracy amidst a slow camera orbit, building a highly suspenseful vibe. Then, we get a stealth night shot where a man secretly enters the farmer's house to hide royal jewelry. The source explicitly calls for low light, moving shadows, and crucially, a handheld camera feel. That handheld technique, it's totally intentional. It creates an immediate sense of unease and instability, perfectly framing the frantic, hurried mechanics of the deceit. Vikram's harmony has been violently invaded by Pratap's greed.
So, before we step out of this stealthy night and into the bright lights of ancient authority, we have to ask a crucial question. When deceit happens in the shadows, how does the authority of the era, the king, bring it into the light? Let's find out in section 4, Royal Justice, the Clay Pots. We now enter the grand royal court of King Veerbhadra, golden pillars, a crowded village, the whole shebang. The story treats this ancient trial method as the absolute critical juncture. The chaotic emotion of the crying farmer and the false confidence of the landlord are suddenly brought to a dead halt. 2 large clay pots are placed in the center of the court. The prompt literally specifies everyone's silent. The king points toward the pots, and the source demands a suspense moment featuring slow-motion cloth movement and intense lighting. It's a masterclass in visual pacing. By slowing the motion and hitting those pots with intense light, the narrative forces us, and the characters, to focus entirely on the imminent revelation of the truth.
And here is where it gets really good. Look at how the source dictates a dramatic zoom and a blurred background to isolate the landlord's guilt in scene 6. The truth isn't just revealed by what's inside those clay pots, it's revealed by the psychological toll of the trial itself. The instructions call for a tight close-up on Pratap, showing very specific physiological reactions. He's sweating, he has a nervous face, trembling hands, and fear in his eyes. By blurring the background and zooming in dramatically, the visual narrative completely strips away his fancy royal clothes and his co-conspirators. He is isolated with his own guilt. Sweating bullets and trembling hands, he's practically confessing before the pots are even opened. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, Truth Prevails, Dharma Restored.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how the cyclical pacing of the narrative arc tracks perfectly with the time of day. It mirrors the journey from peace to deceit and back to enlightenment. Think about it. We started at sunrise, representing pure, untainted peace. Then, the conflict and deceit exclusively occurred during the night, shrouded in shadows. The trial took place during the day, under the harsh, intense lighting of the royal court where you literally can't hide anything. And finally, the resolution brings us to the golden hour. Time and light in this story aren't just background fluff. They're active participants in delivering the moral lesson.
So as we reach the emotional relief of the farmer and the breakdown of the landlord, the source explicitly uses golden light rays to literally symbolize the victory of truth. The instructions are incredibly clear. As Bhanu Pratap falls to his knees confessing, the visual climax is achieved through golden light rays symbolizing truth. The folklore doesn't leave the moral ambiguous for even a second. It uses highly realistic volumetric lighting to visually validate Vikram's honesty and show that order has been restored.
Actually, we need to take a quick second to look at the source's negative constraints, the aesthetic rules to avoid. To maintain the dramatic and emotional weight of this Indian historical vibe, the source explicitly forbids blurry imagery, cartoon styles, distorted faces, or extra limbs. And why does this matter? Well, let's be honest. Absolutely nothing ruins the solemn gravity of ancient Dharma quite like a landlord accidentally having 3 arms. For us to fully absorb the severe consequences of deceit, the world has to feel grounded, historical, and deeply human. A cartoonish style would completely undermine the serious moral stakes of the clay pot trial.
Our source wraps up with a cinematic wide shot, returning us to that peaceful aesthetic mirroring the very beginning. The narrative loop is officially closed. We are back in the green fields, but it's no longer just sunrise. It's the golden hour, a time universally associated with resolution and warmth. Vikram is smiling proudly, the birds are flying again, and the prompt explicitly calls for a happy ending. This wide shot reassures us that when truth prevails, the natural harmony of the world is entirely restored.
So, I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. How do we take these age-old cultural lessons of morality and translate them into the dynamic, contemporary visual formats we study today? As we've just seen, every shadow, every ray of light, and every camera movement in this outline was deliberately chosen to serve the ancient concept of Dharma. By analyzing these modern structural blueprints, we gain a much deeper understanding of the timeless mechanics of folklore storytelling. Thanks for joining me in analyzing the fields of truth, and definitely keep looking for the structure beneath the stories you see every day.